It is my absolute pleasure to introduce our final guest speaker for today's webinar, Petra Gierga, Product Manager at Peak Scientific, presenting her talk, How Can a Gas Generator Benefit Your Lab? Petra leads the product management team at Peak Scientific, looking after a portfolio of compressor-based nitrogen generators specifically aimed at LCMS and MP-AES applications. Having worked with Peak Scientific for 18 years, Petra has been responsible for the development and launch of a range of nitrogen gas generators and leads a team of product managers who are responsible for ensuring Peak's products provide the best solution when it comes to on-site nitrogen gas generation. A warm welcome to you, Petra. After Petra's presentation, you will have the opportunity to pose your questions in a live Q&A. Please ask questions using the Q&A system to the right-hand side of the video player. Please also feel free to navigate over to our literature section where you can download the latest resources from the sponsors of today's webinar. If you experience any technical issues throughout the webinar, please click the chat icon in the bottom right corner to request support. And without further ado, I will now hand over to Petra to begin her presentation.
Thanks, George, and thank you everybody for joining us today for this presentation. George gave me a wonderful introduction, so I don't really need to talk a lot more about myself, but please give me an opportunity to introduce Peak Scientific just before we get into gas generators into detail. So we are a manufacturer of laboratory gas generators, and on-site gas generation is our sole business focus. From the innovative design through to the manufacture, delivery, and installation of our product, but also very important to us, the ongoing support of our customers in the field. We have a global install base of over 60,000 gas generators, and we are looking after our customers with just over 600 Peak staff at the moment, most of which are based outside of the UK. So we've been in the market since 1997, and I would say after over 20 years of experience in gas generators, you may say we are a bit of a subject matter expert, which is why I think we are well placed to talk about why customers should be choosing a gas generator for the laboratories. So one of the most common reasons why customers are making the switch to gas generators is the cost of gas cylinders or other traditional supply methods in comparison to on-site gas generation. You will know for cylinders, you will always have the purchase cost of the actual gas, you have rental cost for the cylinder, you have repeat delivery cost for the cylinder, liquid gas top-ups, you've got admin cost as well. And with a gas generator, you just avoid all of that. You purchase a piece of equipment, and once installed, you have gas on demand for your instrument, and it really is that simple. Just to illustrate, there's some detail on how much money a gas generator could save you. So using our Genius XC35 as an example, over a period of 3 years, a Genius XC35 can save you around about 50% on your lab's gas supply needs. And I think you would agree that is actually quite some saving. What a gas generator will also give you is a continuous supply of gas at a stable pressure, stable purity, and flow required by your instrument. Gas is always there when you need it, whereas with a cylinder, you may run out of gas mid-analysis, or there may be undesired changes to purity because of poor gas bottle maintenance by your supplier. And think of your instrument downtime each time you have to replace your cylinder as well. It sums up over time. Also, it's not uncommon that contamination is introduced to the gas line during changeover as well. So it means that you have to purge the lines and so on, all of which is time consuming and quite frankly, a thing of the past when using a gas generator. A big reason for making the move also is the safety aspect for customers. A single cylinder stores around 9,000 litres of gas. Venting 9,000 litres of nitrogen into a small lab's atmosphere potentially could cause some lightheadedness for people working in the lab. If you're working in a very small lab, you could even have a risk of asphyxiation. And generators generally work totally different from a cylinder, obviously. We just filter ambient air, and the filtered air later goes back into the atmosphere. So the actual composition of the air in the laboratory doesn't change. So 9,000 litres of nitrogen can sound quite scary already, but consider that for a hydrogen cylinder as well. Hydrogen is an explosive gas, and it's explosive already at only 4% in the atmosphere. And that can be reached quite easily if you consider the volume of a cylinder as 9,000 litres. A hydrogen generator, again, works quite differently. There's only a very small amount of stored hydrogen in the system. so it doesn't pose any real risk of explosion. And also, even if you had a leak or you just let the generator running into your lab, it would take quite a large number of days before you would get to that explosive level. And because hydrogen escapes so quickly when it's only produced in small amounts, you would even need a kind of hermetically sealed lab to even get to that explosive level. So a lot safer than traditional supply methods. So these would be the main reasons why many of our customers would be switching to gas generators from more traditional supplies. But there are some other reasons that customers have stated over the years. For example, gas on tap is super convenient. Just imagine not having to consider when your next gas delivery is due, or if you still have enough gas in your tank before running any samples. Gas purity from a generator is also stable, so you have great consistency across all your analysis for all your lab results. We've already covered that they are safer than other supply methods and more economic, but they are also greener because you do not need all those repeat deliveries. And in case of Peak Scientific, obviously, we are working very hard to reduce our carbon footprint. And every new generation of product we are releasing is greener as well. So we're looking quite closely at sustainability of our product, recycling materials, but also the energy consumption. So we're working very hard to reduce all of that with our product. Finally, if you remember during the pandemic, of course, nobody really forgets about that so quickly. And maybe also for some time after the pandemic, you may have experienced supply challenges where gas cylinders maybe have not been available, or prices have been skyrocketing for your gas needs. And really, gas generators reduce the reliance on third-party suppliers for all of your gas deliveries and keep you running no matter what else is happening in the world. So if you're now thinking, this all sounds amazing, and the generator is really a worthwhile investment for you, you might be wondering what to look out for when buying a gas generator. Typically, you will look at your actual flow requirements, your purity requirements, your pressure requirements of what you're using for gas just now. But also what I would urge you to consider is to make sure that you're planning for the eventuality of the gas generator developing a fault. Nobody really wants to talk about this, but we live in the real world, and in the real world, sometimes things can go wrong. And if something does go wrong, you need to understand and know what will work best for you. Peak 41 has always made sure that we do our best to keep our customers running. And we do like to talk about maximizing uptime of your instruments, because we understand for the majority of our customers, this is really important. So we have a global support network where you can raise any issue with your gas generator anytime. And beyond that, we also have a global network of trained field service engineers who carry out maintenance and repairs if required. What's more, we have a really high first-time fix rate of 95%. So if you call out a Peak engineer because something is wrong with your generator, chances are he will fix it on the spot, and you'll be able to carry on with your analysis on the same day, which we think is really important to our customers. And finally, just to give you an example of what our gas generators actually look like, since I've been talking about them so much, from left to right, we have our iFlow product, which can cater for the nitrogen needs of pretty much your entire laboratory setup. We have our brand new Horizon 24 generator for single quad LCMS, and we think a true market leader. We have our Genius XE35, tried, tested, and approved by the vast majority of LCMS vendors. Another thing to look out for when choosing your gas generator. We have our Precision Stack, our custom solution for GC carrier and detector gas requirements, a Corona system for thermocut instruments, and finally our Infinity XE product, which is positioned for customers who need nitrogen for multiple instruments, in most cases, multiple LCMS systems. And not to forget is our hydrogen generator for GC detector gas needs. It's a very, very small generator. So if you're ever thinking about space constraints, and I've been trying to think what the size kind of relates to over the day or so, but I think it's maybe comparable to a small coffee machine. It's really that small. It really fits into any unit, into any lab, It really makes quite a difference to so many of our customers already. And just in case I've missed anything, just to highlight, Peak Scientific, we do offer a full range of nitrogen, hydrogen, and air generators for your laboratory. So if you're using an instrument and I've not specifically mentioned it, please feel free to reach out and we can advise of what might best work for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Petra. That was a fantastic presentation to conclude today's webinar. I'm going to move on to the Q&A section of this presentation. So please submit any questions you may have for Petra, and we will do our best to answer these in the time available. Any questions that we don't have time to get to will be answered offline as soon as possible. So Petra, your first question is, how do I know if my instrument can use a gas generator?
Basically, I would say any instrument that uses nitrogen, hydrogen, or some form of purified air can use a gas generator. It might be best to check with the instrument manufacturer or in the instrument side requirements. It will give you details on what the actual gas requirements are. But if you're unsure, always feel free to reach out to Peak Scientific and we'd be happy to help and advise.
That's perfect. Thank you so much. I'm going to move on quickly. So your next question is, what are the typical maintenance requirements of a gas generator?
Oh, that very much depends on the gas generator itself. For the hydrogen system, it's generally just a cartridge and filter change once a year. Then you've got some differences between different types of nitrogen generators, whether they have a compressor or whether they don't have a compressor. So if they don't have a compressor, it's just an annual filter change. For units with a compressor, there would tend to be, depending on usage, typically annual maintenance of the compressor around that. But generally, it's not a lot of maintenance that you need to consider.
That's perfect. Thank you. We've got time for a few more questions today. So your next question is, how much space does a generator take up in the lab?
Well, that depends on the amount of gas you need, really. So the more gas you need, the likelihood, the larger the system. Nitrogen generators, we've got some of the smaller systems, they would easily fit under a lab bench. So if you're looking at one-to-one supply for an LCMS, you would generally have a product that would slide under your lab bench and it would sit nice and neat. If you're looking maybe for something for 2 or 3 LCMS, that would be a little bit larger. For the precision stack or hydrogen generators, they can be benchtop if you are that way inclined. And other products are so small, you can even mount them on the wall.
That's amazing. Thank you. And we've got time for one final question today, which is, are generators noisy?
That depends really on the generator. For peak generators, we would generally say the ones without compressors or those hydrogen generators, they don't tend to emit any noise. If you have a generator that has internal compressors, it will emit some noise, but it would be around about the same level as all the other laboratory instruments you have in your lab, so that it shouldn't really stand out as being more noisy than anything else you have there.
That is perfect. Thank you so much, Petra. Sadly, that is all the time we have available for today, but it has been a pleasure to have you present with us.
Thank you.
We hope that you have enjoyed this webinar and found it informative and engaging. To help us improve future events, we kindly request that you take a few moments to complete a short survey after the webinar finishes. Your feedback is valuable to us and will aid in future webinars to better meet your needs and expectations. And that concludes today's webinar. We hope you have enjoyed it as much as we have, and a reminder to everyone to continue submitting your questions on demand, and we will pass them over to the relevant speaker to get back to you with an answer as soon as possible. Thank you once again, Petra, and all of our other guest speakers today, and we will see you again soon.